House Resolution 19 by Assemblymember Cook relative to the 4th of July.
You may open, Mr. Cook.
Thank you very much. Members, can I have your attention, please? Members, can I have your attention, please? Members, can I have your attention, please? You know, I don't get up very often and I don't speak. And when I do, I try to make it worth your time, our time. And the reason I'm here today is to introduce a resolution about the 4th of July. And I want you to kind of go back in history and kind of visualize that you're with the founding fathers of our country on July 2nd, 1776. And you have this document in front of you. A document which some might argue is a little late to be presented since the previous year, the actual fighting, if you will, had broken out in Lexington and Concord. People had died. Even before that, you had an incident called the Boston Massacre, where individuals died, one of which many of you in the audience might remember, Crispin Attucks. And if you don't know your trivia, I'm going to remind you afterwards with a test. But a lot of things had been heating up, and these people met in this hall to decide whether they were going to take this final step. Now, a lot of people were hesitant. Right now, let's fast forward to this day. They said, Cook, why are you doing this? You know, we got the budget. You know, this is going to distract from everything that's going on. This will deflect from our biggest crisis that we've got going. Our biggest crisis? Yes, it's a huge crisis. But we use words like, you know, we're going to be dead, or we're going to be killed, or everything, all these, the hyperbole that's associated. Jefferson and his colleagues had those real words in the back of their mind. When John Hancock signed that, the first one there, he knew he was going to be the first one that the British would string up a rope and hang him. It was serious business. And Washington, who was the leader of the Continental Army, and some would question what kind of army it was. Yeah, they won a couple of battles at Bunker Hill, Breeds Hill. Nathaniel Greene and a guy by the name of Benedict Arnold were actually the ones that took Ticonderoga and dragged the artillery pieces to Boston for the siege. And they were trying to do something in New York. And ironically enough, a month after the Declaration was signed, the whole Continental Army was almost trapped and completely eradicated on Brooklyn Heights in Long Island. But a miracle escape across the East River allowed them to survive. Now, these individuals had a lot of courage to go forth in a new direction. It was radical. And you heard the words of it. Everybody knows about it. Such words as all men are created equal. And we all know now that we don't use that term men. We're talking about everybody. That was what was so great about that. There was enough flexibility in there to move forward. And were they all equal? As all of you historians know, perhaps the greatest legacy, the greatest failure, was the Declaration of Independence. In the following document, the Constitution did not address the overwhelming issue that lingered to that day, and that was slavery. You know, when I was in college, I always had heartburn with Thomas Jefferson that he never could fix that they caved. Somebody from my home state, Roger Sherman, the Great Compromise. You didn't solve the issue. You compromised. We all got together. And yet you left a lingering issue where in a number of years, in 1860, 620,000 Americans would die. more than all of the wars combined from one issue that we still deal with. Now, why am I talking about this? It's almost like I'm saying they shouldn't have done it. Because this was a radical step. Was it perfect? No. It was deeply flawed in some of their policy decisions and the way they interpret. But in terms of the rest of the world, these people were way ahead of it. That a king or a prince or a czar or what have you doesn't have complete control over your life. That we are born with certain rights that everyone has. And that's everyone in this chamber and everyone they represent. Now, that was the foundation. And that's why this day is so important. You know, in this country, I'm a historian. It bothers me that we forget history. You know? Because you just don't learn the good history. You have to learn the lessons from history. History now is what? Firecrackers and hot dogs and hamburgers? At my age, I probably should avoid hot dogs and hamburgers for a variety of reasons. Nathan Fletcher is kind of constantly reminding me of my age and my cholesterol level. I've been in a few battles, combat, and I still get embarrassed when somebody lights off a cherry bomb next to me. I jump. I get embarrassed. I can't help it. I have problems with fireworks. They start fires in my district. They're sold on every street corner, and that's another policy issue which we'll address at a later time. But we almost forget why that date was so important. The average teenager knows more about race car drivers with the Firecracker 400 or whatever it is than they do about Jefferson or Crispin or Benjamin or John Adams. And ironically enough, the people that put together, you know, within a number of years, they were fighting with each other. Jefferson and Adams almost didn't speak to each other for years until finally, just before their death. But they came together for the common good of principles and ideas which we cherish and we hold firm. And I think we can take a lesson right now as we're in the middle of a huge crisis. That we can learn that, yes, we have a crisis. But this is when you have to suck it up. This is when you have to make the tough decisions. No one is going to shoot you or hang you if you push the red button or the other button or if you debate or what have you. But there are people suffering. And there is a crisis. And just as these people in the past showed their courage and signed that document which started our country, I hope that we can take that spirit and use it in this crisis that we have on our hands right now. Thank you.